Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wealth Architecture. I'm your host, Jason Safford, founder of Exceptional Results Now, and I'm here with my awesome co-host, Bruce Wernick, founder and CEO of Wernick Financial Services. And we're here to talk to you about designing your overall wealth journey. And Bruce, today we're talking about how do you execute on your plan? Before we talked about your plan and having a plan, but now it's a matter of, okay, once you have a plan, the next thing you got to do is actually take steps to implement it. And you know, I always like to think about it in terms of assembling the resources.
Exactly.
The first thing that you want to do is say, okay, where am I? What do I have? Tell me a
Exactly.
little bit about that.
That's the key here. That's what we have to start looking at is, everyone has when I meet somebody and I talk to them about what it is that I do, and the first thing I ask them is I say to them, like, "So what exactly do you think it is that I do?" And they'll say, "Oh, you help me with my stocks, you help me with this and that." And I go, "Yeah, well, that's not necessarily where at all what I do, but let me explain that to you." So it's you really need to figure out the plan is because they'll say to me, "Don't worry about it. I'm all taken care of. Here's what they do. I'm taken care of." I said, "That's great. Well, what's your plan? What are you doing with that? Do you have your wills in place? Do you have these things that really affect your finances, or that it's being passed to the next generation? Are those really in place for you? I mean, if you do, that's fine. You have your insurance in place, and is your insurance, is it just a death benefit, or is it there to help you down the road and helping you with your retirement supplements? You have your 401ks, your IRAs, you have your other things that are out there that are going to be there to help you with that. And that's digging deep into uh, where are some of your shortfalls that we need to go after, and cleaning out that junk drawer that we have. Everyone has this financial junk drawer that's just sitting there. Everyone's got the junk drawer in their house, the one with the paper clips, with the hammer in it, with the post-it notes, and maybe even a tape or some menus. Those everyone's got those drawers, but when you open that drawer and you start cleaning it out and start organizing and putting things into its place, you got to take that hammer, put it back into the toolbox. You got to take the post-it notes, put it back on the desk, and then now you have this nice box, this container that's there to actually hold and do what you need it to be, to do what it needs to be there for.
I have to, I get a kick out of the fact that you used the junk drawer analogy because it's so good in the fact that there are all these resources
Right.
and we just throw them into a drawer without any organization and we wind up calling it junk. But this is one of the most valuable drawers in the house because anytime you need something to fix or address an issue, that's usually where the stuff resides that can really help you.
Exactly.
So part of our biggest issue, in terms of execution, being able to really build, grow, protect, and prosper our wealth is the fact that our relationship with it, the words that we use, how we look at things that are actually very necessary to our long-term sustainability and stability, is that we kind of just say, oh, yeah, it's taken care of, it's over there. And so part of what you're saying to me is that, you like to help people with looking at their junk drawer and saying, okay, what are the resources you already have to take care of certain things? And let's really look at, do you have the right resources, to deal with everything, number one. But number two is, you mentioned a toolbox. How equipped is their toolbox with the right tools? Their office supplies. How equipped is their, office with the right supplies? So, these are all, different terms, but it begs the question. So, you look at your plan of, what you have and where you want to go, and you take the first step to, really, looking at the junk drawer, what do you normally find with people when you do that evaluation?
Redundancies. Find
Okay.
a lot of redundancies. You'll find a lot of people are spending money, or they're spending the multiple dollars on the same thing they can do to provide the same outcome. You know,
Okay.
let's use a great. People are spending money on streaming now, right? But you know what else? They're also spending money on cable, right? So I've got a big cable bill, but I'm also spending money on the streaming platforms, on Hulu, or if I'm spending it on a Netflix, or Amazon Prime comes with your Amazon video, comes with Amazon Prime package. So they're spending money, and $15 here, $10 there. It's like the old not analogy, the old saying that whenever I used to go buy a car, oh, but if you don't buy that soda today, every day that you're going to buy, you're saving money, and now you get that money to get that upgrade on that car. It's like, yeah, but how many dollar monthly fees, or $10 here, $10 there, can you accumulate that you're really digging away at people's? That's a big part of someone's monthly income that can go to do better for them. The money can go better when you do the research of saying, oh, I don't necessarily need the cable anymore because Hulu offers live programming. So what I need cable for when I've got this service, and there's, if you actually just go inside, and people don't do that research to find out what's there, what's offered, because um, simple point, and I don't mean to be offensive, but people are lazy. And I'll just rather just pay it. I'll just rather pay it. I'll pay this, I'll pay that. Um, it boggles my mind that people do this when they're smarter than that.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at, you use the statement, people are lazy. When you look at that from the standpoint of executing on a plan, it sounds like not just having a coach, but actually, having a set of fundamentals of what they're supposed to do in place, how they're supposed to use tools. They need education on.
Yeah, exactly. They need to know, like what I said, they're not doing the research that's needed. They're not doing the background checks, and because they're taking advice, they're not taking advice. They're going off of what's been told to them by the noise in the room, the advertisements, the their friends, because what is good for their colleague or their friend may not be the best thing for them. I get this all the time. People say, "Oh, I want Johnny's plan. They want the plan that you gave Johnny. He's doing really well with it." I said, "That's great, but are you Johnny?" Because not necessarily. He's got 5 kids, and he's got a smaller house, and he's got this and that, and he's also taking care of his parents in the house. So what I'm doing for Johnny may not work for Frankie, because Frankie, his wife, and they got 1 kid, but they're earning the same amount of money. That plan may not be good for them. What he's telling me is that he's saying, I like what you're doing with them. I like the customizable approach that you went and took care of what he needed. I need that. So it's not necessarily he wants that plan. He wants that same sort of attention. He wants that same sort of being looked after that you did with them. That can you provide that for me?
So if I think about it from, my own perspective, it sounds like what you're saying to me is that most people don't only want the sense of, okay, this is what Bruce does and this is how he's going to help protect my assets, but what they want is the surety to know that Bruce is taking care of that for them. And the problem is that in terms of the information and knowledge, they're kind of not being educated on it. So do you find that the disconnect in terms of, wait a second, you have to have a plan and we have to look at your resources, and then let's sit down and let's look at what you know and what you don't know about your
Exactly.
own, financial health, so to speak, and get you healthy.
That's right on point. I mean, it brings me back to over the summer, I was talking to a prospective client at the time, and he's a business owner, and he was telling me how I told him, I said, when was the last time? He was a young guy, and I knew he didn't do this. But I said, when was the last time you and your partners reviewed your buy-sell agreement? And they said, well, I don't really have it. I know that if something happens to me, and by the way, this business is just knocking out of the park with programmers. And they said, I don't have to worry about it because, and I was kind of brought up the point of, you're going to have to buy out your partner, and where's that money going to come from? But not just that, but he kept referring back to me with the one-time gift exclusion that everyone gets of $1 million. He goes, don't worry about it. I get my one-time gift of $1 million. I can get that from. I go, I don't think you understand what you're saying. It's going back to what you said, Jason, about what they don't know. He knows that there is a one-time gift that you're allowed to get up to $1 million tax-free gift, but that's not necessarily takes place with the gift of a business. He's not gifting the business. He's actually purchasing the business back out of his partner if something was to happen, or he's going to buy his partner out, his partner's family out, if something would happen to them. So it's what he didn't know that really got me. And I had to explain, sit down and say to them, I go, what you're talking about is true, but doesn't play true in the buy-sell agreement of the business. You need to know that if something was to happen to you, is your partner prepared to buy out your wife your $500,000 and make sure that they have no more claim to the business, or you want to go in business with your the partner's wife? And he's like, oh, I didn't realize that. So that's what really kind of broke through. And again, that's part of the garbage that's inside that junk drawer.
So the first step is, once you create a plan, it's really educating or getting educated on both the resources that you do have available, as well as what the resources that you don't have, that you should know, and whether or not you can take action on them at that particular time. At least you can start assembling them in terms of when you should go down the road and assemble certain resources. So that leads me to the next question, in my mind, which is that, whether you're just starting out in life or you're, 50 years old with, a couple of kids and a spouse, and, let's say that you own a business and you're making a couple of $100,000 a year. What is it about that education and understanding the resources that motivates somebody to, then be like, okay, now I need to take action? Obviously somebody who's, 50 and hasn't taken action yet, there's a sense of urgency.
Right.
But somebody who's just starting out in life, again, if they're focused on this, they could have that same sense of urgency. And the advantage for the person just starting out in life is that obviously they have more time with which to accumulate resources. But for both of them, it's sort of, okay, you get educated on what you know and what you don't know. What does that do for you?
So many the person, the realization of knowing that anything can happen to stop tomorrow. The person who's 20, 28, 25, and they're building a business, and they're putting everything into it, and putting a lot of sweat equity, putting a lot of money into it, and it's growing. And thank God it's going where they need to go. And then there's the 50-year-old who done that, and he's at a point where he's got to realize he's got to start taking stock of the company and putting the money, putting the business as opposed to stop spending time in the business and start working on the business. You know, this 28-year-old and the 50-year-old person is still the same mindset that they still have to do that. But there comes a point in the business where you don't necessarily have to keep putting money back into the business because they realize that they don't realize that that's what has to be done. That's what they've always been doing. They've been putting the money back in the business, and because they need that money to keep growing. But if you take stock of where you are and everything, they'll realize the 50-year-old will say, you know what, I don't have to do that anymore. You know, everything seems to be on autopilot. What can I do to take the business to the next level? Or what is not in place that if something was to happen, that we don't, what's the plan to knowing where to take the business if that's not, if these things aren't in place.
So in terms of the overall, what I think you're saying, for the listeners is that the overall execution really is a matter of, as you create the plan, and part of the first step is education on what you do have and what you don't have. Then it's a matter of creating more plans. Right. Once and being able to execute on all of these, other plans that are related to, your overall primary mission, let's say.
Right, and the key is, and I guess the point I was trying to make is that these plans always change. There's nothing going to be concrete forever.
And if I read you on that, what you're really saying is life happens.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because what can happen to a 28-year-old, to a 50-year-old, can happen to a 28-year-old.
Right.
It can happen at any time. And that's why we have to make sure that we are constantly reviewing our plans and making sure that they're up to date. The business may have grown so much that, you know what, this buy-sell agreement that you wrote 3 years ago is no longer sufficient enough to carry what's going to happen. Or, things have happened in the business that we had to downsize so much that we're totally overfunding something that we don't need to fund anymore.
Okay, now I hear you saying something that I really want to touch on, because it sounds like the first thing that or the biggest mistake that people make, not the first thing, but the biggest mistake people make is, even if they create a plan, even if they educate themselves on what they know and what they don't know, the problem is that they don't necessarily know what to do next, and they develop bad habits very quickly. Right. Or they already have bad habits, because I heard you say before that the redundancy is the biggest problem with people. So really, when you create a plan, the first step is to step back and assess yourself in relation to that plan, and whether or not you're fundamentally sound in terms of your own habits to create your financial health.
Correct. I mean, you have to really make sure that what those habits that you're talking about are concrete. Excuse me. You have to make sure that you're doing the same thing, and not the same thing that's going to cause you to go insane. I've always been taught that successful people do the things that non-successful people aren't doing. They're doing the things that the non-successful people are doing. They're checking first thing of the day. They're making sure that they have their orders are ready or in place. That their activities, what they need to do for that day, is set not just that morning, but they're set up that day the night before. Or what's your plan for the week? The day that Sunday you set up for the week. What are you going Where are you as a business owner? What are your goals, your objectives that you need to accomplish for that week? And what are you doing to make sure that you get what you need to do, get to where you need to go? Sorry.
Yeah, and it sounds like, part of your challenge with people is that they get into these habits and these redundancies out of a need for comfort, and that comfort comes at an expense to their overall financial health. And so therefore, your challenge is getting them to get out of their comfort zone, number
Okay.
one, to develop new habits and create a better comfort overall with their actual financial health and their relationship with their financial health that they don't really have connection with. In other words, people just buy things and do things and throw them in a junk drawer rather than having a relationship with their financial health and these tools and resources in a valuable way.
Exactly. I mean, I have a client that I just picked up that it's funny. He's been a friend of mine for years, and um, he was working with this gentleman I knew, but the client is always busy. He's busy, so busy with his work. He doesn't have time to really focus on his finances, but yet he complains about it all the time. And the last guy that he was working with, whenever he would walk in the office, my client would just write him a check, said, here, just do what I need to do, take care of it.
Mhm.
Well, that guy, that guy who he was working with, the advisor he's working with, is no longer in the industry. So he came to me, he goes, I don't know what I have. I just kept writing this guy's checks. And so it turns out that he was I mean, the guy wasn't doing anything malicious or wasn't doing, he had the best interest of the client in mind when he was doing things, but he didn't really put him into a plan. He was just buying, things for him, thinking that's what he needed to do. But going back to the redundancies, like he had two of the same options in the same portfolio. And it's like, you're wasting money. Because there was nobody really keeping track of what was there. And again, going back to that junk drawer was just full of good things, but they weren't doing what needed to be done.
So Leonardo da Vinci had a fantastic saying or quote, which was simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And it sounds like your role in helping people to develop or architect their wealth journey is really helping them to connect with those items in the junk drawer in terms of their financial tools and resources, and getting them to develop better habits with their relationship,
Need
their
them to get
finances.
themselves out of their way, because they tend to stand in the way of their own progress. One, they're either too smart, again, and it's not to be discrediting, but they seem to be too smart for their own good. Oh, I know that. I know this. I know what's happening. But the truth of the matter is, they know what they've heard. They don't know what they need. They don't know what's the right thing because their neighbor has it. John has this, but Frankie needs that. But they want to do what Johnny's doing. They have too much of the same thing. They're paying double the amount on this two different products that are doing the exact same thing. So again, they're stepping, they're trying to do what's best, but yet because they aren't clear and concise, and they don't have somebody coming in to really do a deep dive analysis of what they have and to review what they have on a regular basis, they're wasting money and not consolidating and doing what's best for them.
What happens to someone once they have sat down with you and you really help them to assess everything and they leave with the clarity that you're talking about to really go forward.
Well, I say this all the time. I say my clients are probably one of the best slept people that I know. My clients, because they're not up at night wondering, am I doing this right? Am I not doing that right? Because I give them the clarity to know that they are on the right track. They are on their right track. The right track that's the best thing for them.
Awesome.
Because they've decided the plan. I'm just helping them implement what they need to do for themselves. I help them, like you, go out and work with somebody and make sure that they're the best person they can be. I want to make sure that they're the best financial place that they can be, because that's what they want.
Awesome. All right, Bruce, thank you for another episode of Wealth Architecture.
Pleasure. I'm glad we got to do this.
Where can people find you?
Find me at planprotectgrow.info, planprotectgrow.info. It's my website, and you'll be able to ask questions there. The big resource tab with education on business tips, as well as life tips, like personal financial life tips as well.
And I'm Jason Safford, founder of Exceptional Results Now. You can find us at exceptionalresultsnow.com. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We look forward to the next episode.